The train was already pulling away when Nora Fields faced the cowboy her sister was supposed to marry, and before she could confess the lie, Aaron McCall looked at her and said, "You're not Alice." Coal smoke drifted across the Silver Junction platform as Nora tightened her hand around 17 letters that carried her sister's name but far too much of Nora's life. She had come to return them, repay the fare, and leave. Instead, the unusually tall rancher studied her with a stillness that made nearby conversation fade. Then his eyes shifted to the horse Nora had just noticed limping beside a freight wagon. Who taught Alice to see that? Nora could have protected the lie. She didn't. Nobody. My father taught me. Aaron looked at the letters, then back at her. "I'll take you." Nora's chin lifted. "You'll do no such thing." And for the first time, the big cowboy hesitated. "Stay with this story and tell me, would you have walked away?" The train pulled away from Silver Junction in a cloud of coal smoke, leaving Nora Fields alone beside a small brown trunk. Late August heat lay over the Colorado platform, but the wind coming down from the mountains already carried a hint of colder weather. Nora kept one gloved hand on the trunk handle and the other against the leather satchel beneath her coat. Inside were 17 letters addressed to Alice Fields. Her sister's name, her sister's handwriting, too much of Nora's life. 2 nights earlier in Kansas, Alice had sat at their mother's kitchen table and confessed everything. She could not marry Aaron McCall. She loved someone else. Worse, whenever she had not known what to write to the Colorado rancher, she had borrowed from Nora. The stories about helping father judge horses. Nora's, the boarding house accounts. Nora's, the winter a mare had gone lame, and Nora noticed it before their father did. Hers too. Nora had spent most of the train ride angry enough not to cry. Now there was only the practical problem. Find Aaron McCall, return his money, give him the letters, apologize for Alice, then find work until she could afford the rest of the journey to Denver. A wagon rattled past the station. One of the team horses favored its left hind leg. Nora watched it take 3 steps. Loose shoe, she thought. "Miss Fields?" She turned. The man standing beyond the baggage cart was impossible to mistake. Aaron McCall was not a giant from some dime novel. He was simply an unusually large man. 6.5 feet or more, Nora guessed, with shoulders shaped by years of lifting feed sacks, setting posts, and working horses rather than by vanity. His coat was dusty at the cuffs. One boot carried dried mud. He held his hat low enough to shade most of his face. People gave him room without appearing to mean to. He looked at Nora, then at the departing train, then back at her. Nora lifted her chin. "Mr. McCall?" His eyes rested on her face for several quiet seconds. "You're not Alice." The speech Nora had practiced from Kansas City to Colorado disappeared. "No," he waited. "My name is Nora Fields. Alice is my younger sister." Nothing moved in his expression. Nora opened the satchel. "There's been a deception, Mr. McCall. I came to put it right." She offered him the bundle of letters. Aaron did not take it. Instead, he glanced toward the wagon disappearing beyond the depot. That bay horse was lame. Nora frowned. "What?" "You watched its hind leg." She looked toward the road. "Loose shoe, most likely." Aaron's gaze returned to her. "Who taught Alice to see that?" The wind snapped the hem of Nora's traveling coat. There it was. One lie could perhaps protect Alice from embarrassment. It would also make Nora part of it. "Nobody," she said. "My father taught me." Aaron looked down at the letters. Something changed in his face. Not anger, something quieter. "Your father kept a stable behind the boarding house." Nora's fingers tightened around the bundle. "Yes." "You did the books after he hurt his hand." "Yes." You slept in the barn 3 nights when the chestnut mare was sick. Nora stared at him. Alice had told him everything. Almost everything. Just under the wrong name. Aaron finally took the letters, but he did not open them. So I was writing to your sister. Yes. But I was hearing about you. Nora swallowed. Much of the time. A baggage porter rolled an empty cart between them. Neither spoke until its iron wheels stopped rattling. I'm sorry, Nora said. Alice should never have done it. Neither should I have come without warning. The fare you sent is here. She reached for her purse. I'll repay every dollar. Aaron looked at the trunk beside her. Where are you going? Denver. Today? If there's a train. There isn't. Nora glanced toward the ticket window. Tomorrow then. Freight train tomorrow. Passenger service Friday. 3 days. She had enough money for food. Lodging would take most of what remained. Aaron seemed to make a calculation of his own. My books are 6 months behind. Nora blinked. What? Man who kept them left in June. I can count horses. I'm less successful at counting where the money goes after the horses leave. Despite herself, Nora almost smiled. Almost. Aaron bent, picked up her trunk and settled it against one shoulder. Shh, I'll take you. Nora went still. So did the porter standing nearby. Aaron noticed both reactions. Nora's voice became very quiet. Mr. McCall, I crossed half the country because one member of my family already made decisions concerning me without my permission. No man standing on a railroad platform is going to take me anywhere. Aaron did not bristle. He did not remind her how easily he could carry the trunk she had dragged through 3 stations. He simply lowered it back to the platform. Poor choice of words. Nora studied him. I meant I'll take you to McCall Ranch if you choose to come. He nodded toward the mountains. 6 weeks, paid work. You straighten the books. After that, if you want Denver, I'll see you get there. And if I decide sooner, then you leave sooner. That answer came without hesitation. Nora looked past him toward the pale road running west from Silver Junction. Beyond the last roof, the land rose toward dark timber and blue-gray mountains. She had come prepared to correct Alice's mistake. She had not come prepared to step into the life described in those letters. 6 weeks, Nora said. 6. As an employee. Yes. Nothing else. Aaron gave one slow nod. This time he waited until Nora placed her hand on the trunk. Only when she released it did he pick it up. They had nearly reached the wagon when a thick-set freight owner leaning against the hitching rail called out, McCall. Aaron stopped. The man looked from Aaron to Nora, then toward the team waiting beside the road. Who's your friend? Miss Fields. The man tipped his hat. Frank Dyer. Nora returned the greeting. Frank's eyes shifted back to Aaron. Heard Rock Creek docked you again. Aaron's jaw moved once. We'll settle it. Frank gave a humorless little breath. You'd better. Then he looked at Nora. If he's promised you 6 weeks' wages, ma'am, I'd ask for them in writing. Aaron said nothing. Frank pushed away from the rail. McCall Ranch might not be there in 6 weeks. He walked toward the freight office. Nora watched him go. Then she looked at Aaron. The large cowboy set her trunk carefully into the wagon bed, as though Frank had merely commented on the weather. Nora climbed onto the seat beside him. You neglected to mention that. Aaron gathered the reins. You hadn't agreed yet. And now? The horses started forward. Aaron looked toward the mountains. Now you have your first account to straighten out. The road to McCall Ranch climbed west through dry grass and scattered pine, then narrowed where the ground began to rise beneath Sawtooth Ridge. By sunset, Silver Junction was only the smudge behind them. Aaron spoke little. Nora did not mind. Silence was easier than pretending they had arrived at some ordinary arrangement. Near dusk, the ranch appeared below them. A long log house stood behind a split-rail fence, with 3 barns, a smithing shed, 2 corrals, and a broad pasture running toward the foothills. Horses moved through the fading light in dark, quiet shapes. A woman with gray-brown hair pinned tightly at the back of her head met them on the porch. "Mabel Quinn," she said, wiping flour from her hands. "Nora Fields." Mabel looked once at Aaron, once at Nora, then at the trunk. "Guest rooms aired." "Employee," Nora said. Mabel's mouth twitched. "Then the employee rooms aired." Aaron carried Nora's trunk upstairs and set it inside a narrow room with 1 window, a washstand, an iron bed, and a writing table barely large enough for a ledger. He paused at the door. "Breakfast at 5:30. I'll be there." The next morning, Nora found Aaron waiting at the kitchen table with coffee in a tin cup and 6 months of paper tied into uneven bundles. Freight receipts, feed invoices, farrier bills, notes written on scraps of brown wrapping paper. Nora untied 1 stack. "Who kept these?" "I did." She looked at him. Aaron took another drink of coffee. "Badly." That almost earned him a smile. Almost. Before she touched a single account, Nora laid out her conditions. 6 weeks means 6 weeks. My wages go in writing. I have a private room. And half my pay is deposited in Silver Junction every 2 weeks. Aaron leaned back slightly. "So you can leave?" "So I never have to ask permission to leave." His eyes held hers, then he nodded. "Fair." By noon, he had written the agreement in plain language and signed it. By supper, Nora discovered something else. The small table in her room was gone. In its place stood a heavier oak desk with 2 deep drawers and enough space for 3 ledgers side by side. She found Aaron outside tightening a gate hinge. "That was your desk," he kept working. "Was. You didn't need to move it." "No." Nora waited. Aaron drove the last screw into the hinge. "You did." Then he walked toward the barn. The first week settled into a rhythm. Nora worked with the books in the mornings and learned the ranch in the afternoons. She knew horses, but she did not pretend to know the high country routines. When Mabel showed her how the ranch stored winter flour against mice and damp, Nora asked questions. When Eli Turner laughed gently at the way she tied a lead rope, she handed it back. "Show me the right knot." He did. She learned. Aaron noticed. He noticed everything, though he rarely commented. 3 days after Nora arrived, a young stallion broke a rail in the north corral. The crack brought every man in the yard running. The horse spun against the fence, eyes white, striking at the dirt. 1 ranch hand reached for a rope. Aaron lifted 1 hand. "Leave it." He stepped inside the corral alone. Nora watched from beside the gate. With his size, he could have looked like a threat even to a calm animal. Instead, Aaron removed his gloves. He turned slightly sideways, lowered his head, and waited. The stallion blew hard through its nose. Aaron did not move. A minute passed. Then another. The horse stopped circling. Aaron spoke so quietly Nora could not make out the words. The stallion took 1 step toward him, then another. Aaron finally raised his hand and touched its neck. Nothing dramatic happened. That was the remarkable part. Later, Mabel handed Nora a cup of coffee on the back steps. "Folks in town think he handles horses by being stronger than they are." Nora watched Aaron replacing the broken rail himself. "They don't watch very closely." Mabel gave her a sideways glance. "No, they don't." By the end of the 2nd week, Nora knew the ranch was not failing because it lacked work. It was losing money on paper. Rock Creek Freight Company had deducted penalties from nearly every delivery since May. Late arrival, improper shoeing, insufficient rest, replacement harness. The amounts were small enough to look ordinary. Together, they were not. Aaron stood behind Nora's chair one evening while she ran a finger down a column. June 7th, $12. He bent closer. Late delivery. Your ranch book says the team left here before dawn. It did. And arrived? Before noon. Nora pulled another receipt from the stack. Rock Creek says after 3. Aaron's face changed very little. That made the change more noticeable. Robert Sloan signed it. He signed most of them. Sloan's name appeared again and again. Nora opened another ledger. Has he offered to buy something from you? Aaron's gaze shifted toward the dark window. The remount station at the pass. Recently? 3 times. Nora sat back. Then I'd stop calling these mistakes. For a long moment, only the kitchen clock moved. The next morning, Nora found her work gloves on the desk. The split leather across one palm had been stitched with heavy waxed thread. She carried them downstairs. Aaron was gone. She asked no one. 2 days later, his brown work coat disappeared from the peg beside the mudroom door. When it returned, the torn seam at the shoulder had been repaired with small, even stitches. Aaron put it on after breakfast. His fingers paused once over the mended cloth. He looked across the kitchen. Nora kept reading a freight bill. Neither said a word. That afternoon, she found the invoice that changed everything. Rock Creek Freight had charged McCall Ranch $9 for a late delivery on July 23rd. Nora checked Aaron's ranch ledger, then the stable log, then the handwritten schedule pinned inside the supply room door. No McCall horses had left the ranch that day. She carried the paper outside. Aaron was shoeing a gray gelding beside the barn. 9th of July? He asked when she showed him. July 23rd. He wiped his hands on a rag. There was no Rock Creek wagon here. I know. Aaron looked at the signature at the bottom. Robert Sloan. Nora folded the invoice once. This isn't bad bookkeeping. Aaron met her eyes. No. The wind came down from Sawtooth Ridge and rattled the loose boards above the barn door. For the first time since arriving, Nora understood that the 6 weeks ahead might involve far more than ledgers. Someone had been counting on Aaron McCall, never looking closely at the numbers. By the following evening, she had 3 questionable invoices laid across Aaron's old desk. July 23rd was only the beginning. One charge claimed McCall horses had arrived without proper shoes. Nora found the farrier's receipt from the morning before delivery. Another deducted $8 for feed supposedly supplied by Rock Creek, though Aaron's stable log showed the horses returned with the same grain sacks sent from the ranch. Nora dipped her pen. We should take copies to the county clerk. Aaron stood by the window repairing a bridle strap. We? Yes. No. The pen stopped. Aaron kept his attention on the leather. Sloan does business with half the freight outfits between here and Cedar Ridge. Men who cross him stop getting contracts. That sounds like a reason to take the records. It's a reason for you to stay clear of him. Nora set the pen down carefully. You can tell me he's dangerous. Aaron looked up. You can tell me what he has done. You can even tell me what you think I ought to do. She held his gaze. But you don't decide for me. The leather strap went still between his hands. Aaron could have filled the room simply by stepping forward. He did not. After a moment, he lowered his eyes. All right. It was not an apology. Not quite. But Nora noticed he did not say no again. 2 days, Aaron asked her to ride with him to the remount station on Sawtooth Road. 6 horses were due there before sundown, and Nora wanted to compare the station book against Rock Creek's receipts herself. The road climbed through pine and broken granite. By afternoon, the air had sharpened enough that Nora buttoned her coat. Aaron noticed. Cold? I've known cold. Not this kind. Nora glanced at him. Was that a warning or another decision? The corner of his mouth moved. Warning. Then I'll accept it. They were less than a mile from the station when the wagon ahead of them struck a rut. Wood cracked, the rear axle dropped hard, and one of the wagon horses lurched sideways. A trace twisted around its hind leg. The animal panicked. Men shouted. One reached for the bridle. "Back off," Aaron said. He did not shout. He did not need to. The men moved. Nora's mare shifted nervously beneath her. Aaron looked at Nora. "There's open ground behind you. If he breaks loose, go left. Don't try to outrun him downhill." He did not grab her reins. He did not order her away. Then he dismounted. The trapped horse kicked at the broken wagon tongue, eyes rolling. Aaron approached from the side, slow enough to seem almost careless. "Easy." The horse struck the dirt. Aaron stopped, waited. "Easy, boy." When the animal finally gave him half a step, Aaron moved. One hand steadied the harness. The other freed the twisted trace. Within a minute, the horse stood trembling, but upright. Nora let out a breath she had not realized she was holding. Aaron looked toward her. "You all right?" "Yes." That was all. Yet something about the question stayed with her for the rest of the ride. He had not asked whether she had obeyed him. He had asked whether she was all right. They reached the station too late to return before dark. The line cabin nearby was hardly more than 4 log walls, 2 bunks, a table, and a small iron stove. Aaron lit the fire while Nora checked the station ledger by lantern light. Outside, wind dragged pine branches against the roof. She found 2 more discrepancies. Aaron sat across from her, elbows on his knees. "You were right," he said. Nora looked up. "About Sloan?" "About me deciding." The admission seemed to cost him something. She closed the ledger. Aaron watched the stove. "My brother's name was Peter." Nora said nothing. 6 years ago we were bringing horses over Mercer Pass. Weather turned. His thumb rubbed slowly across an old scar on his knuckle. Peter wanted to turn back. The wind struck the cabin wall. "I told him we could make it." Aaron stopped there. Nora waited. He didn't. No dramatic explanation followed. There did not need to be one. Aaron leaned forward and added a piece of wood to the stove. "Since then, I don't like leaving things to chance." "People aren't chance." His eyes lifted. "No. They're not yours to manage either." A long silence. "No," Aaron said again. Softer this time. Morning came clear and painfully cold. When they returned to McCall Ranch near noon, Mabel met Nora at the kitchen door holding an envelope. "Came from Denver." Nora recognized the handwriting before she broke the seal. Mrs. Helen Crawford, proprietor of Bluebird House. She read the letter once, then again. The widow who owned 1/3 of the boarding house was ready to sell. The price had not changed. If Nora could bring the deposit and reach Denver before the middle of November, the share was hers. For years, Nora had kept coins in jars, folded bills inside flour tins, taken extra bookkeeping work at night. A place with her own name on the accounts. Her own kitchen. Rooms for freight drivers and travelers. It was suddenly possible. She looked up. Aaron stood across the kitchen. His eyes dropped to the heading on the letter. Bluebird House, Denver. He said nothing. That evening, Nora found him in the workshop cutting thin boards. "What are you making?" "Box. I could see that." He measured the lid again. "For your ledgers." Nora stopped. Aaron fitted a strip of oiled canvas beneath the wood. "Keeps rain out." "For Denver." His hands paused. "Yes." There was no accusation in the word. No request that she stay. That somehow made it harder to hear. Nora left him working beneath the lantern. The next morning, the finished box sat beside her desk. On top of it lay a sealed notice from Rock Creek Freight Company. Aaron opened it at breakfast. Mabel watched his face. "What is it?" He handed the paper to Nora. Rock Creek would allow McCall Ranch one final delivery before renewing its winter contract. If the horses failed to arrive on the specified date, the contract would pass elsewhere. So would the operating rights to the remount station on Sawtooth Road. At the bottom was Robert Sloane's signature. Nora read it twice. When? Aaron looked toward the first thin line of snow visible high on Sawtooth Ridge. 10 days. Nora spent the next 4 of them building a case. She stopped treating Sloane's invoices as bills and began treating them as claims that had to be proved. A livery receipt from Cedar Ridge showed a McCall team arriving before noon on June 7th. Rock Creek had charged $12 for arriving after 3. A blacksmith's receipt contradicted another penalty. Then Frank Dyer sent 2 freight drivers to the ranch. Both remembered the July 23rd run because neither had worked it. There had been no run. Nora placed their signed statements beside Sloane's invoice. Aaron stood across the desk. Enough? He asked. For the county clerk to start asking questions. Then I'll take them to Cedar Ridge. We'll take them. Aaron's face closed. Nora saw it happen. Sloane knows these records came through you. He'll know eventually. He can make trouble. So can bad bookkeeping. This isn't funny. I wasn't joking. Aaron planted both hands on the desk. Even bent over, he seemed to take up half the room. Nora did not move. You're warning me again, she said. Yes. Good. I heard you. His jaw tightened. The meeting in Cedar Ridge was set for Thursday morning. Nora came downstairs before sunrise Thursday wearing her traveling coat. Aaron was gone. His coffee cup sat rinsed beside the basin. On the kitchen table lay a folded scrap of paper. This is mine to settle. Nora read it once. Then she folded it along the same crease and put it in her pocket. Mabel watched from the stove. You want me to say something? No. Nora removed her coat. If I start saying what I want to say, breakfast will burn. Aaron returned after dark. Mud covered his boots. His hat was damp. Nora was at the table with a railway timetable and a small envelope. How did it go? Sloane called the records incomplete. Because I wasn't there to explain them. Aaron removed his hat. The freight representative gave us the final delivery. Nothing more. Nora pushed the envelope across the table. Inside was a ticket to Denver. Aaron stared at it. I leave after the delivery. His eyes rose. Nora. No. She did not raise her voice. You're still thinking the problem is that you didn't need my help. Aaron remained standing. The problem is you decided I wasn't allowed to give it. Silence filled the kitchen. You told me about Peter, she continued. I listened. I understood more than you think. Aaron's eyes dropped. But I'm not Peter. I know. Do you? He had no answer. Nora took the ticket back. I won't build a life where someone else's fear gets to make my choices. The next afternoon, a Rock Creek rider arrived carrying a new order. The delivery date had been moved forward. 1 day. Aaron read the notice twice. That puts us through Granite Cut tomorrow. Eli Turner looked toward the ridge. Weather's coming. Aaron knew it too. The barometer in the tack room had been falling since morning. Clouds had gathered over Sawtooth like dark wool. Nora saw the old reflex return to Aaron's face. The need to decide, to carry it alone. Before he spoke, she said, Don't. His eyes found hers. I'm going. He hesitated, then nodded. All right. They left before daylight. The first snow began as they entered Granite Cut. Nothing heavy, just dry white flecks turning in the wind. Ahead, a Rock Creek wagon rounded the narrow bend too fast. Its rear wheel struck a stone. The wagon lurched. A wheel collapsed. The load shifted sideways with a crack of timber. Horses screamed and pulled against their traces. The wagon tipped across most of the road. Behind Nora, the McCall horses began crowding forward. "Hold them!" Aaron called. Eli turned his horse across the lead pair. Aaron rode toward the overturned wagon. A broken sideboard came loose as the freight team struggled. Nora saw it swing. "Aaron!" The timber struck his right shoulder. He stayed in the saddle, but only barely. Nora reached him. "Can you move your arm?" "Enough." He tried. His face went pale beneath the cold. "No," Nora said. "We have horses backing toward a drop." "I can see that. I need to get off the horse." Aaron stared at her. Wind drove snow between them. Nora looked past him at the blocked road. Then she saw something beyond the wagon. 2 shallow cuts running through the grass beneath the new snow. Old wheel ruts. Her father's voice came back from years before. "Old roads don't disappear. Look where wagons had room to turn. Look where water doesn't sit." Nora pointed downhill. "There's another track." Eli followed her hand. "Old logging road. Can it take horses?" "Maybe." "Then we're not moving them past this wagon." Aaron shifted in the saddle. "I'll take the front." His right hand failed when he reached for the reins. Nora stepped closer. "Then trust me enough to stop." For a moment, Aaron McCall looked like a man fighting something far larger than pain. Then his boots touched the ground. He handed Nora the reins. She turned to Eli. "Take the first 6, slow. If the ground softens, stop and send word back." Eli nodded. "Frank's men can hold the middle. Nobody crowds the turn." "What about the wagon?" "Leave it until the horses are clear." No one argued. Not even Aaron. The old road was rough but passable. One group at a time, the horses moved away from Granite Cut and down through the timber toward the lower freight road. Aaron walked beside Nora for part of it, his injured arm tied against his chest with a folded neckerchief. Once, when the trail narrowed, he started to step ahead, then stopped. He looked at Nora. She pointed left. He went left. By dusk, the last McCall horse reached the lower road. So did the Rock Creek team. The freight drivers had seen everything. The changed schedule, the weather, the wagon ordered through Granite Cut, and the records Nora carried in the waterproof box Aaron had built for her. One of them looked at the box, then at Aaron. "Sloane's going to have questions to answer." Aaron looked at Nora. "Yes," he said quietly. "He is." They reached McCall Ranch long after dark. Mabel heated water for Aaron's shoulder while Nora carried the account box upstairs. She placed it beside the Denver ticket. Then she pulled her trunk from beneath the bed. For 6 weeks, it had remained open against the wall. Nora folded her dresses, her gloves, her mother's small sewing case. Last came the ledgers. She closed the lid. The latch made a small final click in the quiet room. Outside, wagon wheels were already being checked for the morning road to Silver Junction. Nora kept her hand on the trunk. 6 weeks earlier, she had arrived with everything she owned inside it. Now the room around her held small evidence of a life she had never intended to begin. A chipped blue cup Mabel had declared belonged to her. A stack of freight receipts squared neatly beside the desk. A dried sprig of mountain sage tucked into the window frame after one of the rides back from Sawtooth. The waterproof ledger box sat on the desk. Aaron had made that for Denver. Nora blew out the lamp. Downstairs, the kitchen was still lit. Aaron sat beside the stove with his right arm bound close to his body. Mabel had put his shoulder in the sling and threatened him with a wooden spoon if he tried lifting anything heavier than his coffee cup. He had apparently believed her. For once. "Nora." She stopped. On the table were 4 things: her wages, the bonus from the final delivery, her Denver ticket, and a folded letter bearing the county clerk's seal. Nora opened the letter. It was addressed to Mrs. Helen Crawford at Bluebird House. The clerk described Nora's work on the McCall accounts, her reliability, and the records she had assembled concerning Rock Creek freight. Nora lowered it. You asked him to write this afternoon. Your shoulder was tied to your chest this afternoon. Didn't stop my mouth. She nearly smiled. Then she saw the ticket again. The smile never came. You're helping me leave. Aaron's eyes remained on hers. I'm making sure staying isn't something you have to do. The stove popped softly. Nora pulled out the chair opposite him. Aaron looked tired. Not the tiredness of a day's work. Something deeper. The kind that came when a man had finally run out of places to hide from himself. When you stepped off that train, he said, I thought I needed someone useful. Nora said nothing. Someone who could keep books, understand horses, keep a place running. His left hand rested flat on the table. I was wrong. About me? About what I needed. He looked toward the dark window. I don't need a housekeeper. I can hire one. I don't need another pair of hands. I've got hands. Nora's eyes dropped briefly to his sling. Usually two. Aaron gave the smallest breath of laughter. It disappeared quickly. I won't ask you to trade Bluebird House for McCall Ranch. Something tightened behind Nora's ribs. He continued before she could speak. And I won't ask you to stay because I can't manage without you. Can you? No. That answer surprised her. Aaron looked at her again. But that's my problem to solve. The room went very still. If you go, it has to be because you want that life. If you stay, it has to be because you want this one. He paused. And me in it. Nora looked at the man across from her. The first day, he had lifted her trunk without asking. Tonight, he had placed a train ticket within her reach. That difference was larger than the distance between Kansas and Colorado. She folded the recommendation letter. Good night, Aaron. His face revealed nothing. Good night, Nora. She took the ticket upstairs. Before sunrise, wagon wheels rolled through the yard. Aaron heard them from his room. He sat on the edge of the bed, listening. A door closed below. Mabel spoke to someone. Then came the unmistakable scrape of a trunk being loaded. Aaron did not go to the window. He had spent 6 years confusing love with preventing departure, preventing danger, preventing loss. So he sat there and let the wagon leave. At breakfast, Nora's chair was empty. Mabel poured coffee. Aaron drank half of it. South Station needs checking, he said. Mabel studied him. Does it? Roof did last month. Aaron put on his coat one-handed and went outside. The old Southern Remount Station sat 3 miles from the ranch beside a wagon road that had fallen out of regular use after Rock Creek shifted traffic north. The place had been empty for years. Aaron rode slowly because of his shoulder. When he came around the cottonwoods, he heard hammering. He stopped. A wagon stood beside the cabin. Nora's trunk was in it. Mabel's cousin was on the roof replacing a board. And Nora Fields stood in front of the building with a measuring cord stretched between 2 windows. Aaron stared. Nora noticed him. Morning. He dismounted carefully. Denver? Nora looked up at the cabin. This one leaks. Aaron followed her gaze. A dark hole showed near the chimney. Badly. Then I suppose I'll need a good neighbor. Aaron looked at her. Neighbor? Nora let him wait. Start there. The answer settled between them. Not a promise she had been cornered into making. Not a reward. A beginning. Nora rolled up the measuring cord. Mrs. Crawford's price would have taken nearly everything I've saved. This place costs less to lease, and the freight road still carries enough drivers to keep 6 rooms busy if Sloan's northern route loses traffic. You've thought this through. I generally do. Aaron glanced toward the cabin. Boarding rooms? 4 at first. Meals. Coffee before daylight. Feed supplies if I can afford the stock. Stable? Later. Aaron nodded. He caught himself before saying what she should build first. Nora noticed. That time she did smile. Over the following weeks, the evidence against Rock Creek moved slowly through the proper hands. The county clerk compared Nora's records with the livery receipts. Freight owners questioned Sloane's penalties. Drivers who had been at Granite Cut told what they had seen. There was no dramatic arrest in the street. There did not need to be. Rock Creek's claim to the remount rights was suspended while the accounts were reviewed, and McCall Ranch kept its winter contract. The first real snow came while the roof of Nora's new place was being finished. Aaron arrived one afternoon carrying a wide pine board under his good arm. Nora stood on the porch. "What's that?" "Sign." She looked at the blank wood. "No name?" Aaron handed it to her. "Your place, your name." Nora ran her thumb over the smooth grain. Later, she painted the letters herself. Fields' house. Aaron came by near sundown. The sign rested against the porch while the paint dried. He read it. Nora stood beside him. "There's room underneath." "For what?" She picked up the brush. "McCall horses welcome." Aaron looked at her. For the first time since Nora had known him, the smile came without restraint. It changed his whole face. He held out his left hand. Nothing more. Nora looked at the broad, work-worn palm. Then she placed her hand in it. He did not pull. She stepped closer because she chose to. Behind them, hammers sounded across the roof of Fields' house. Down in the valley, a line of McCall horses moved along the road toward the winter pasture, their breath white in the evening air. Snow had begun covering Sawtooth Ridge. The mountains would make life difficult. The roof would leak again. There would be accounts that refused to balance, horses that went lame, roads that washed out, and winters that arrived before anyone was ready. Nora knew that. So did Aaron. Neither of them needed the other to make life easy. That had never been the promise. 6 weeks earlier, Aaron McCall had stood on a railroad platform and said, "I'll take you." Now, beside a house carrying Nora's own name, he simply left his hand open, and Nora chose to stay. Now, beside a house carrying Nora's own name, he simply left his hand open, and Nora chose to stay. Maybe that was the truest promise either of them could have made. Aaron had spent years believing that loving someone meant standing between them and every hard thing that might come. Nora had spent just as long being useful to everyone around her, while quietly saving for one small corner of the world she could call her own. Neither one needed rescuing. Aaron needed to learn that strength was not always holding tighter. Sometimes it was opening your hand and trusting someone enough to let them choose. And Nora needed a love that did not ask her to disappear inside another person's life. Out there beneath Sawtooth Ridge, they found something quieter than the romances people wrote about in letters. 2 lives, 2 names, 2 futures standing side by side. Perhaps that's worth remembering. The people who truly love us don't always clear the road ahead. Sometimes they simply make sure the door remains open, and then respect whichever direction we choose. If you had Nora's ticket in your hand that morning, would you have gone to Denver or stayed and built something new? Tell me in the comments. And if stories about second chances, quiet courage, and people finding their way home mean something to you, subscribe and stay with us. There are more stories waiting beyond the next ridge, some tender, some mysterious, and some about wounds that only begin to heal when someone finally chooses to stay.